All right, well, let's jump in. My name is Scott Cuthbert. I'm co-founder of Safepedia, and I'm super excited for today's conversation with Rosa Carrillo, who is a famed
I have
author.
two. You want to see
Ar-
my paintings?
oh, yeah. uh, Artist and author for environmental health and leadership topics, and Corrie Pitzer, CEO and co-founder or founder of Safemap International. So we're going to have a fireside chat today. We're going to continue the conversation around Deming's principles. And today we're going to explore the elimination of slogans, exhortations, and targets for the workforce. So maybe to kick things off, Rosa, we could talk a little bit about what are some typical slogans in safety these days?
Safety first. The number one popular. Go back to your family the way you came to work. Zero harm is the goal. Those are some of the top three that off the top of my head. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, it's actually, I find the whole world of sloganeering very fascinating. It is to do with, how do we market safety? How do we market our products? And I think there's something very fascinating about it, almost in terms of consumer psychology. And from my perspective, the one that Rosa just mentioned, the safety first, that's probably one of the most well-known ones and most widely used ones. But I think the slogans have actually started to shift. If you think about it, and it's probably got to do with the way that we start to think differently about safety. But I remember, say 10, 15 years ago, the typical slogan was that safety first, all accidents are preventable, humans cause 90% of the accidents. And one that I really like is, or used to have a problem with, is safety is common sense. And what's the other one that was, all accidents are preventable, especially that one, all accidents are preventable.
Yeah.
It's almost like a finger pointing, to the persons in the organization. If there's an accident, clearly you've done something wrong because it was preventable.
Yeah.
So
There's always, everyone is responsible for safety.
Yep, that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, interesting story. There's one that goes around that says people look at a mirror and say, you're looking at the person who's most responsible for your safety. There's a sticker. And I remember in 1980, early 80s, I was in this mining company in South Africa, and one of the miners actually said this to me, that he looks at it in the morning at his mirror and says, that's the person responsible for safety for today. And I went to Australia after that, and I talked to one of the mining engineers of one of the provinces, Jim Torlak, and I told him the story. And he loved it. He started producing stickers and sent it to the mines from the Department of Mines. You're looking at the person that's responsible for your safety, and put it in your change houses. And I wonder to what extent he was responsible for the proliferation of that whole thing, because it was just rife in Australia everywhere. And,
well, it was the same in the U.S. A lot of money was made by the imprint people. They made little mirrors, and then imprinted on the mirror was, you are looking at the person responsible for safety.
Yeah. And of course, we got some those slogans that started to go a little bit out of fashion, because we've got new ones coming in, don't we? If you look at LinkedIn. How many times would you see a post on LinkedIn where the post is saying, workers are the solution, not the problem. Behaviors are a symptom of the problem, not the problem.
Fail safely.
Fail safely. Don't blame the worker.
Don't blame
the work environment. Those are new slogans. And
yes, they are.
They're coming very fast and furious at us.
So how do you distinguish between a good and a bad slogan?
You're asking me.
Yeah, well,
Okay, let me give it a go.
yeah.
I think there are good slogans, and there are bad slogans. I think if you think about the use of a slogan, I think it has actually incredible value in safety or any functional discipline. It creates a powerful image immediately for a person. Like zero harm, or whatever the case may be. It captures emotions, and it simplifies. I think it simplifies complex things into something very, very comprehensible by people visualizing it. There's an interesting book, Making Messages Stick, or Making It Stick, that I read way back about, slogans such as, what's the one? Well, just think about Nike's, just do it. How powerful is that slogan? Around the world, everybody knows it. When the moment you see it, just do it. Those are good slogans. But it's when they actually become destructive, like the one Rosa mentioned, zero harm. That has got so many negative connotations into it. I don't know, Rosa, what do you say?
Well, there's it starts with good intentions, right? Because, well, zero harm, who wouldn't want that?
Wouldn't want that, yeah.
Yeah. And so then, and I think as human beings, we just really like to have sound bites because the world is so complicated. The sound bites just help you put things in order, right? In some kind of certainty in your universe. And zero harm is like, okay, zero harm, and that's what we're going to aim for. It's seldom that I find that leaders or people that work in safety have the time to really think about the consequences or the meaning of the slogan. We're just too busy doing administrative work usually to sit back and think about what's going to be the impact of this slogan long term. So I don't think we're going to be getting rid of slogans anytime soon. They're just too popular, too convenient. I think that we need to just keep an eye out and reveal the ones that are coming out that may cause harm. Sometimes unintended.
Unintended, yeah.
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 What about harnessing the slogans? If you can really create and I want to almost a bit of a plug for one. If you can really capture something in that in a positive way, it has a very strong message capability. And the one I'm thinking of is one of my clients is a diamond mining company, De Beers. And the slogan for safety. Now think about De Beers. They sell diamonds. They sell happiness.
Yeah. Love. Well, love is the big one.
It is. They sell brilliance in a way, and also, where do they get the diamonds from? Well, they have to pioneer mining. They have to mine in most amazing places for the diamonds. And so their catch term is pioneering brilliant safety. You think about how beautifully that links with their DNA, how that tells you what they do as a business. And they want to be pioneers in safety, just as they're pioneers in everything else. So I think there's some great value to be had if you can think your way through the slogan in very positive terms and make it work for you.
Yeah, well,
Right.
definitely. And when if you learn that you need to change it, then change it, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So along the lines of the slogans, we have quotas, and are they necessarily bad to have? for such as, reporting near misses and those sorts of things? Is it advantageous or detrimental to have quotas for things of that nature?
What
Rosa,
do
do
you
you
mean by
want to
quota?
start?
A certain number of near misses to be reported?
Yes,
Uh,
having targets for reporting near misses as an example.
I don't have anyone that has done that. Do you, Corey? Has anyone set that as a target?
Oh yeah, it's very rife. Organizations set targets for reporting. They set targets for completing job safety analysis forms. There's a whole well, think about just the way that they target safety as an outcome. We've had so many million hours accident free, 3 million hours. Now the next target is 4 million. And, those kind of targeting is extremely rife still in most organizations, in many organizations, not saying most, but in different forms. And maybe not explicitly these days anymore, but I think implicitly, the moment you start to celebrate anything in safety in terms of periods of times that we've been incident free or reportable injury rates are coming down, those are all confirmation of targeting in an organization, and then that has its consequences in so many different ways.
Well, definitely. I have seen research that confirms where people have admitted that they hold back on reporting when they're very near achieving a goal. They hold back on reporting so that they're not the ones that ruin the record. So that is obviously not what we want. Yeah. I wonder what would be a positive. You certainly don't want to encourage people to have incidents or, accidents, but how do you encourage people to report in a positive way? Have you had any experiences with clients that have had success in that?
Yeah, I think if you structure the reporting mechanism in the organization in a positive way, it all depends on how you do that, and then what you do with the results, or what you do when you don't get the reporting targets met. Then you're starting to get into all kinds of negative management of people in terms of non-compliance, and people then start to do all kinds of funny things, and so you get people sitting and reporting the completion of job safety forms. They do that in the trucks, or they do that in the lunch hours, and they have to have and I know so many times when, I did it myself when I was working on the ground. We had a quota of hazards to report, so we would slap it out very quickly and then submit it, and the supervisor's happy, the safety department's happy, everybody's happy, but it's absolutely meaningless.
Yeah.
What you do. I've seen one organization where and I kid you not, the job safety analysis forms were stored in huge boxes. A whole area of the warehouse were forms. And there were 3 guys sitting there and logging the information on an Excel spreadsheet. And to their left was this massive boxes that they still have to log. And when I started tracing, okay, where is this Excel spreadsheet going to? It disappeared into, no one's looking at it. So this is a real story, and I'm sure people have.
I know a lot of people are going to identify with that one.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear they were logging them in an Excel spreadsheet, because I've seen the trailers full of boxes with the field level risk assessments, and they fill them out and put them in a box, and nobody ever looks at them again. So
yeah,
but that's oh, sorry. Craig, go ahead.
And you talk about field level risk assessments. I know there was quite a bit of a thing going on about take fives and how useless they are. The research in Australia, and in that environment, in many environments, they're useless. They're just paper activities. But again, if you use a constructive system and you use it in a positive way, they can add value. You know, you actually get a level of participation in there.
Mhm.
And for instance, you know, field level risk assessments, I've seen them very effective, very positively used, and I've seen them completely useless. So it's not the system itself.
Right.
No,
It's how the environment in which they are being used.
Right.
exactly,
If they're
exactly.
if they're being reviewed and used to help improve the approach to safety on the job site, then that's definitely different than putting them in a box and then never looking at them again. So
Yeah. Well, I think quotas, or the management of outcomes, the management of objectives, is a sound management principle. All organizations have targets in whatever shape or form. The whole organization functions on targets, and they're planning towards it and stretch targets. And so you can't deny that to be, as non-value add. Overall, the whole organization functions on that. It's the unintended consequences of it, especially in safety terms. When you start to say to people, well, you got to start targeting the reduction in accidents because, for instance, the reduction in injury rates. No one in an organization knows what they contribute to an injury rate or not. How do you know that? You know, your little world is so small.
Yeah, well, that brings up a good point, because I think the only way you could know those things is if you actually had conversations with the people that you work with. I was observing a group that was going over an incident where an employee had stuck his hand in to fix a piece of equipment without doing lockout tagout. And that is so basic, right? Why would somebody stick their hand into a piece of equipment? Well, it was only going to take a second, and he said that he didn't want to he didn't want to get in trouble with his teammates for delaying the process. Okay, so they're having this conversation about all the things that might have affected the person's state of mind in making that decision, so the topic came up, production pressure, and the supervisor got very upset. I don't know why you're bringing that up. I'm always telling you how safety is far more important than production when it comes to you're getting hurt, that you should put your safety first. And one of the employees said, well, sir, the thing is that you're always talking to us about the targets and the time and the goal, but you seldom talk about safety. So I think that's why the main reason the slogans lose power is because they're not backed by that real, genuine interaction that helps people to feel that you really do want them to put safety first.
Right.
I thought that was a perfect example, and it was so great that the supervisor's response was really great as well, because he said, I'll tell you what, he said, I didn't realize I was doing that, so I want you to tell me when I'm doing it. And he got everybody to agree.
Yeah, that's great. I was just going to say that talking to workers, a lot of times they feel like the slogans or the risk assessments are to cover the company's liabilities, not as much to protect them as individuals.
Yeah, I want to pick up on something that Rosa said there, which I find very fascinating and also undervalued in many cases. And that is, I didn't want to get in trouble with my team. And we put a lot of emphasis on the top-down relationships in the organization, how leadership is a top-down thing. or it's aligned with how we manage the organization. Leadership is the more senior people, the supervisors. That's not where leadership really happens. Leadership happens in a team. And the effects of people, impact on people, blame, for instance, that we say, oh, we shouldn't blame employees. And we take it out of the line of management, we take it out of our procedures and systems. But the blame remains in the team context, because it's against what they want to achieve. It is a bad mark against their name if there's an incident or a near miss event. So there's a lot of management of safety happening that we're not actually paying a lot of attention to. We pay a lot of attention to how we do it top down, but I think we're undervaluing and underestimating really what happens in that team and what they value and how they respond to each other.
I agree, because we spend a lot of energy on policies, procedures, safety management systems, but those don't work if the team is not supporting it. Because ultimately, we each, and I've been doing a lot of writing about the psychological safety and the fact that every human being needs to feel that they belong and are accepted. Therefore, the last thing you want to do is go against your team, because you might get ostracized, and that would make life very difficult. So when you're competing with that kind of reward, the conclusion I've come to as a leader, what you have to do is you have to build that relationship with your direct reports so that they feel that you're supporting them and that they are included, so that they will feel safe enough to go against their peer groups, because everyone has a peer group that they have in their mind about, is it safe to do this? Is it not safe to do this?
Yeah, and what is the reaction of the people in my team? What we do in our analysis of safety culture in organization, there's two factors that we look at. One is people in my team don't like it if you take shortcuts, or they don't care if you take shortcuts. Mm-hmm. And then that's the one factor. That's what we portray as the team culture. But the other factor we measure is I see people in my team taking shortcuts. So that's what I say as a team, but this is what we do as a team. And that difference is the difference between the idealized, talked about culture in the organization, what we all
the gap,
what we actually do as a team, and that's much more powerful. What we actually do than what we say in the organization, and that's generally true of any organization. Is not what people hear other people say, is what they see other people do, and that becomes the norm and the pattern in the organization. So very powerful notions there about are we giving enough attention to the team context in the organization, the lateral relationships, not so much the vertical ones.
Maybe we need to talk about culture more as a team concept, because culture is so ambiguous, right? And people have a really hard time putting their mind around culture. So we just say, oh, it's the culture, right? A lot of people say, oh, it happened because of the culture. It happened because there's no leadership commitment, but there's no real meat to that. Okay, so what do we do now? But if we started talking about, what is the team supporting? What is the peer group pressure like? And then involve them in a conversation as to why. I would love to have an honest conversation about why what's in it for you to support a culture where people take shortcuts? Let's be honest. Let's have a conversation. Why do we do that?
Yeah.
And get that out into the open. And then what do we do? Once we have the why, we have to take the next step, which is what do we have to do to make it more rewarding to follow the procedure, to do the lockout, tag out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one answer for that.
No, and that was before we got on to recording today, Rosa mentioned that was a topic that came up yesterday in one of our community conversations, was the culture and what do you do at that work-face level of the organization, in order to make sure that there is the positive, healthy culture that may or may not be supported by the top of the organization, right? So I love that team culture idea, and taking responsibility at that team level is it's an interesting topic. I think we'll definitely want to explore that more in the future.
think that's where it all happens, guys. I think it happens at the team level, because if you go and look, I've done so many safety culture assessments. I've been doing this for 25 years. And even in the most dysfunctional organizations, I can find a team that performs well. And it's always associated with the leader of that team, because they have generated a positive team culture around safety. And what that looks like, I mean, again, to use the word culture kind of fogs it up, because really what it is they've generated a place where people can bring things up, have honest conversations, and aren't going to be kicked out or devalued because they admit they don't know something, or they ask a stupid question. I myself have been afraid to ask questions in certain settings, because I'm looking around saying, wow, everybody already understand this. I don't want to be the only one who doesn't understand. We're human beings. We all need that.
So that is a bit of an interesting question of something that I have noticed. I was in an extremely fortunate position to, just before the COVID, for an organization visiting 42 sites in the organization over a period of 2 years, and spending a week on each site. And the purpose of this was to talk to frontline employees about what critical risks are existing in the environment. So we literally talked to 8,000 people during this time. And the reflections that we got from people was actually quite amazing. And here's what I did. On a Monday morning, we would talk to the management of the organization, and they would show us, what they do and safety-wise, etc. And often I would ask the management and the manager, why do you want to be safe in your organization? What is your why in safety? And they would then start telling me, okay, this is why we want to be safe. We care about people. We want people to go home in the same way they came to work, and all the buzzwords come out.
The slogans.
All the slogans. and then I said to them, okay, well, I'm going to ask your employees why they think you want to be safe. And there's always a little bit of, oh, maybe that's a different answer I should be giving then. Because if you're going to talk to the workers now, and so then we would go out to the workers and would ask the workers, why does your management want to be safe? And in a rare circumstance, would the two answers be the same? It is almost always different. What the workers are saying, the managers really want. And what I've noticed was, in many organizations, there's a two-speed management system, a two-speed safety system, a two-speed culture. The top group is very committed to safety. No question. I have not met a person that doesn't care about safety in those. They're all committed. And how do they reach the worker? Well, we do visible felt leadership. We go out, we talk to the workers, and we engage with them. And the safety department does their thing, the HR, the communications, we talk about safety. And there's a huge drive, a powerful flow of information about safety to the workers directly.
Yes.
But who's missed out? The supervisors. The supervisors are not in the game of this whole thing. And so what they tend to do, they focus on the numbers they need to get.
Yes.
Their numbers are the production numbers. So now you get two things to the organization, to the front line of the organization. You get the safety dressed up in slogans and dressed up in beautiful communications, and you get the real world in the middle, and that's not the same speed. That's not the same thing. And that is what happens in the team in the end. They see, I mean, they look up the organization. They're smart people. They know exactly what happens here, who gets paid for what. And to say the right thing, I think we have to get very real about how we approach safety.
We certainly do. It kind of brings us back to the slogan issue, because I don't think that the people at the top of the organization understand how meaningless those terms are.
Yeah.
And the unintended consequences. I wanted to go back to Dr. Deming's the eliminate slogans, exhortations, and targets for the workforce, asking for zero defects and new levels of productivity. Such exhortations only create adversarial relationships.
Absolutely.
As the bulk of the causes of low quality and low productivity belong to the system and thus lie beyond the power of the workforce. I was lucky enough to be in one of Deming's sessions.
Yeah.
And we did an exercise, the paddle, the famous paddle where you get the defects. Are you familiar with that, Scott?
Yes, very
Scott?
much.
No.
The employees absolutely loved it. But it's a paddle with lots of little holes for beads, right, in a row. And you're supposed to stick the paddle into a bin full of beads and pick it up. And you're only supposed to pick up white beads. But lo and behold, the red beads are all over the place. And the red beads represent errors. And they will spend hours trying to work with that paddle to figure out how to only pick up the white beads. They absolutely love it. And that's a real representation of what happens in the workplace. They just get all really involved in trying to make the system work, even though it's rigged against them. They will not give up. And it was really an eye-opening experience also to have the manager sit in the back row and just listen. Deming was so far ahead of his time, it's amazing.
Yeah, that exercise that he did gave me an idea once that I used at a conference. So we had colored balls, soft sponge balls, various colors, red ones and white ones and blue ones, and 2 or 3 black ones. And so I would show it to the audience before and say, okay, this is the black ones are accidents. The others are incidents or good outcomes. Throw the balls into the audience, and you got to throw the balls away over your head, and you got to constantly throw the balls around, and then we're going to call stop, and the ball you catch is the ball you have. That's what you get. The amazing thing was no one ever ended up with the black balls. They cheated.
They let them drop.
They at the moment the exercise stopped and they got a black ball, they threw it away under the tables. They started cheating, which is what people in Deming exercise also do. So workers have to start cheating, fudging, in order to not become the victim of the outcome, basically. And
it's great. I'm going to steal it, Corrie. I'm going to steal your idea. That is it's so graphic.
yeah, it's lovely. But it was based on exactly that exercise of Deming's.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, maybe to stir things up a little bit and to stick along the lines of slogans and sloganeering, but the labels and the buzzwords that are thrown around with safety 1 and safety 2 and
my gosh,
safety differently. How does this help or hinder us in safety? Rosa, it sounds like you want to jump in on that one.
Let me first read a quote of Rosa's. Let me talk about it, because I saw this in what she wrote, and I thought I'm going to read it out today. And this is the quote that she wrote. She says, "So a principal characteristic of a cult is that members in good standing do not question the assumptions or principles of the organization. Also, the leaders hold considerable power that can bring down sanctions on members who do not act or speak in alignment with those principles. I love that statement, Rosa, and I'll let you talk to that.
Well, I have to confess that I learned that through very hard experience, because I myself was under the influence of a cult leader. And it all starts again with good intentions, right? Because our purpose was to provide food for those that were in need of food, and to provide a place for people with drug addiction and alcoholism. So we were going to solve that problem. But as things moved forward, it emerged that the leader was really narcissistic and was primarily interested in manipulating people. So I learned humility, because I knew that I could be susceptible. A lot of people think that they would never succumb, they would never be susceptible, but there's so many forms of cults that, and some of them are positive, actually. Some of them, because religions are really cults, but the Catholic religion that I belong to also has, a great deal of good that it does. So you can't just say all, out with cults, because that's another characteristic of human communications. The negative aspect is what I was writing about, which is that if you can't disagree, and you're kicked out of the group because you disagree, then it's definitely a negative cult. And I think that's what's happened in, we see it in LinkedIn with people that advocate very strongly for example, behavior-based safety and behavior-based observation, the behavioral aspects. And then there's a group that advocates strongly for safety differently, and they start putting down the people that believe in behavioral safety. So yeah, that's a good way to cut off learning and conversation. I don't participate in that.
I fully, and that's why I read that quote of Rosa, because as I said earlier on, I probably introduced HOP and safety differently in 1986 in my organization in South Africa, based on the Deming principles. And I strongly look at the Deming principles, and it really embodies the safety principles. There's no question that those are strongly linked. So safety 2 is for me not new, and but it was new in the safety fields like 10-15 years ago. And so when I started working in the field, at one point I was one manager said that my views on safety is that of a heretic. It's too maverick to even consider, which is now commonplace stuff, And but here's the thing: if let's talk about psychological safety. Psychological safety means we allow people to speak up and speak out and challenge us. That's the main thing about it. But now, if you look at LinkedIn, if people from behavioral safety challenge the people from safety 2, we shut them down. And to me, that's so against the very principles that we espouse. We are actually inviting, challenging ourselves, looking at ourselves critically. But the moment people do that, we vilify them. And I'm not going to name names. You know who they are on LinkedIn. People who are genuinely convinced and focused on their model of safety, systems engineering, behavioral safety, all have contributions to make, and all had made contributions. But now we look at this and we call, I've seen on LinkedIn where people call behavioral safety BS, but bullshit safety, not behavioral safety. And this is so derogatory, so wrong of us. And I'm saying us, I'm talking about the people who are driving new thinking in safety. We should invite challenge. We should invite people to criticize and look for flaws, look for things that may not work well for us. And one of the great contentions in safety today is, why are we deteriorating in safety in terms of fatal rates?
Yes, yes.
We are clearly deteriorating. We are clearly killing more people per thousand than what we've done 10 years ago. Why is that happening? And so the people on the one side say to people on the behavioral side say, well, is it because the people that drive safety differently and safety too, that you are contributing to that or not actually being effective, and therefore we have more fatal accidents? So, and immediately the reaction is shut them down. We should look at that and say, well, what is the possibilities of that? Why is this? It's a fact that it's happening. And we should look critically at ourselves and say, we need to get to the bottom of this, because we're going to kill more people. And I'm deeply concerned about this. And I'm passionate about this, that we should look at ourselves from that perspective and say, let's talk openly about this and become serious about safety.
Well, I had a conversation with a colleague who was telling me that I won't name any names, but they are very respected in the field, and they had introduced HOP to an organization which all of the employees loved HOP, but the incident rates didn't decrease. And so they demoted her, and she left the company consequently. So I said to him, well, isn't it normal when you start opening up the conversation that people are going to start reporting more, and therefore it looks like things are getting worse when they're actually just, the truth is just coming out? And he was very strongly opposed to that the introducing HOP did not mean that the numbers had to go up. I mean, he has a point, right?
Well,
yeah, but it's very hard for the HOP people to wrap their minds around that.
I've introduced the HOP principles, the safety differently principles, in a very large organization in the US. And before we started, I indicated to them that your reportable injury rate is going to go up. You need to expect that, and you need to celebrate that, because it simply means people are now more willing to report.
Right.
And that was the outcome. And to the credit of this organization, they were absolutely focused on it and realized that this is happening, that they were suppressing information in the past. And I think I'm going to name the name here, because I think she's one of the great leaders in safety today. She is a CEO of Georgia Power, Kim Green. And I have Kim Green on a video where she talks about that this is what happened in their obsession with target zero in the past. And now that we're changing, we're going to create a more open workplace. And what happened in that organization was that the reportable injury rates were going up and the serious injury rates were coming down. Now, to me, that's the golden triangle. That is the indication of success. But if reportable rates are going up and it makes the company executives uncomfortable and they don't want this, then they don't understand the potential effects of becoming of thinking differently about safety.
So are we seeing any broad or paradigm shifts in safety? And are we really shifting gears here?
I think we are. I think we are. If we just look at it superficially, but if we think about merging various philosophies into an effective approach, because if you look at the general drift around safety differently, is that We do not blame employees. We respond positively. We engage with employees. We ensure that people contribute to the safety effort. Well, maybe that's new in safety, but it's not new in other parts of the business. It's not new in quality management. It's not new in terms of Deming's principles. Safety circles or quality circles is as old as the mountains in Toyota and in manufacturing industry. So why are we now saying that, learning teams is new? Learning teams are not new. That's actually quality circles. That's actually the principles embodied in quality management. So are we changing paradigms? Maybe we're catching up. That's maybe what we're doing.
Well, but it is a change, though, you have to admit. I mean,
it is a change, yeah.
Because when I started, let's see, 1996 or so, I found that safety didn't have any of those concepts or ideas in place.
No.
Nothing.
It was a top-down management.
Yeah, top-down thing. So I've seen a lot more adaptation of the organizational effectiveness principles, team building, collaboration, communication. They're embracing, some safety leaders are embracing it more and more. The biggest shift I see is, and I wrote, that's the topic of my OHS Voices from the Dissent, is I see a lot of women coming into the safety profession, and it was Kelvin Jen who first said maybe that's the reason for the shift in the people that are working in safety are all talking about caring for the employees, that they care about the employees, but they seem to spend most of their time on administrative work, looking at how to stay in compliance. But they really, their interest is in building relationships with employees and helping them feel psychologically safe. Oh my goodness. I don't know why that went off. Sorry, I apologize.
We'll cut this out, don't worry.
Okay. But I was saying that then the profession, I see a shift into a helping profession by some of the people that are members. Not everybody, because there's a whole group, about half of them see themselves working in risk management, and they prefer the analytical, they prefer distancing themselves from the employees doing analytical work. And the other half are in there interacting with employees and becoming a vital force in communicating that the company cares about you as an individual. So I see that as a big shift.
Yeah, I think that certainly has drifted a lot into that arena of positive. It's almost drifting closer to the principles and objectives of the human resource department. We started creating more and better for employees in our environments, and I'm from a human resource environment originally. That's why that's not new to me. But from a safety perspective, it is certainly something that we've never really done as well as we're doing that now. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But it's a bit like in the pendulum. We got to be careful this pendulum doesn't shift away from the other side that you mentioned, the management of risk.
Right.
It's still fundamental to what we do.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fundamental in our endeavor. And the difference between safety management and quality management is, in quality management, there's a defect coming out of the other end. In safety management, there could be a dead body coming out of the other end. And that's a massive difference. And that is something that just drives a whole level of responsibility upon us to not lose sight of what we need to do in terms of safeguarding our employees. Because if we kill a person in a workplace, it's so much different than putting out a defective car out of the manufacturing process. We got to be, and that's the pendulum I'm talking about, is that you look at there are things in the organization, there are activities in the organization that there is no almost room for going back and say, well, let's try to make sense why the employee did this. Let's try and understand sense making. Let's try and understand why the employee did this. Well, somebody's dead. Somebody's killed, and the person that is killed is often the person that we can't ask why you did this. In different ways. So it's to me, we got to be very clear how we integrate the management of risk and the management of people, or management of safety, if I can put it like that, into one coherent environment, and not that the one becomes an impediment to the other.
No, I've been thinking that the profession might split off into two different tracks, because the risk management requires a lot of analysis, data gathering, and a certain type of mental, thinking and ability, whereas the psychological side of safety requires empathy, listening, relationship building. And those two, I don't find them usually in the same person myself. I usually find that personalities are attached to each one of those, which brings up the subject of HR, because now, as we're looking at mental wellness, safety professionals do not have the training to look at psychosocial risk and hazards and deal with that. The best they can do, they want to help. They can listen. They can, report or advise them to go see, help somebody to help them, but they do not have the tools. So I don't know how we're going to do this, but we have to look realistically at all of the areas that have been assigned to safety and finally admit that one person is not going to be good at all of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think we can really become a transdisciplinary focus on safety because the skill sets are so different.
They are.
For mental health. I don't even know that in the HR we have the skill sets for mental health management. That's such a tricky area. That it's a very, very specialized area.
Definitely.
And we would be causing damage by trying to link this. So by calling this, for instance, psychosocial hazards and using a hierarchy of control. And so let's do this, apply this to mental health. And it is a dangerous path, I think, for us to go.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great point, Rosa, because I think, especially with COVID too, I think things were expedited and more issues were falling on the safety professional's desk than before, and they want to help and protect employees, but way out of their depth, I think, and some of the issues that they ended up owning through COVID and even post COVID, if we can say we're post COVID, but yeah, you touched on it, but it was my next question was, is there a new breed of leaders needed in safety, and a new style and a new approach? And you kind of touched on that, but maybe you can expand.
Well, I think we do have them. And in the OHS Voices book, there's quite a few of them in there. They have a very clear sense of what needs to be done. They're willing to go out and get the education they need in order to perform those responsibilities and duties. They've also learned to accept the fact that if you work in safety and health, you're not going to be particularly appreciated, seen, or heard. And I think that's a huge part of it, is that 50% of those working in this field are thinking of resigning because they don't feel appreciated or valued. 50%. So I think being able to offer some kind of support, classes, education that would help the person going into safety and health deal with that. It's almost like a paradox, right? I'm here to help, but people aren't recognizing that that's what I'm doing. They're not listening to me. They're not taking my advice, and therefore I'm just going to quit, which a lot of them leave the profession, or usually they go to another job where they do feel appreciated.
Right.
I wonder if this is the topic of education and training of the professionals in safety. Whether do we need to wait for the profession to split and then train appropriately? And I agree. I think the safety profession is going to split. I made that statement in a webinar last year that I think we are, on the one hand, going to be moving much closer and closer to the human resource function on the one hand, and we're going to move much closer to the process engineering and operational engineering side on the other hand, on the risk side. We in the middle may not, we as safety professionals in the middle may not in 50 years time from now even be a function anymore, a functional group. And so maybe in 20 years time even. So are we then training people in the right ways now? What are we training people in? I think we're still training people at universities and colleges and whatnot. I think we're still training them in traditional safety mechanisms and not in understanding where the profession is moving into and may dissipate into. So that's leadership training too. What kind of leadership training are we giving or have available in the industry for safety professionals, but leadership training for line managers?
Yes.
That's more important, because in the end, they are much more impactful on the way people respond than anyone else. So what kind of leadership exposure do they get? Skill set development.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the executive for health and safety can provide backing, support for their people, right? For the safety professionals in the organization. But if they don't have the support of the CEO, then you're just running in place.
Yeah.
Well, we are coming up to the hour. There's a few more questions on my list, but do we want to maybe have some wrap-up remarks, or Corrie?
I think we're at a good end point here.
Yeah.
Because we can't go much longer anyway, so otherwise the webinar becomes too long.
Yeah.
So we'll edit this bit out, but I think it's to the conclusion point.
Yeah, well, Rosa and Corrie, thanks so much for your time today. We are coming up against our time here. So any closing remarks for anyone listening, Rosa, today?
There's so much I want to say. I feel a sense of urgency to help organizational leaders understand what the safety and health professionals, practitioners in their organizations are undergoing, what kinds of people they have in that department, committed, talented people that deserve to be seen and heard. And that if we don't find a way to do that, we're just going to be losing valuable talent and not really helping people develop to their full potential. And everything that I've discovered for health and safety really goes for all functions, because there's people in HR that feel the same way. There's people ensuring quality. Anybody in a support system, like organizational development, that's my profession. We always felt unheard and unlistened to. So it's basically anyone that wants to help people, that cares about people, that we need to start looking at them as a valuable asset in our organizations.
I think that's a very valuable point. So I think I want to confirm that, and maybe to add, I think there's an obligation now, stronger and stronger now, on us to start thinking about how do we define our profession, and how do we take this profession forward. So there's the organizations such as the NSC and ASSP and all the professional societies around safety. I'm not too sure we are really thinking about what the future of safety looks like, what the future of our profession is going to look like, and are we getting ready for that? That to me is a very critical question, and I think we should get ready for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your thoughts and, and experience. We'll definitely include your LinkedIn coordinates in the description below, but I'd definitely encourage anybody who isn't already connected with Rosa or Corrie to connect on LinkedIn. If you have questions, I know they're both very generous and open to connecting and answering questions and supporting people in the health and safety field. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yes, with that, we will sign off.
Thank you, Scott, for this.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Rosa, for joining us today.
Thank you, Corrie, for organizing this.
Yeah.